And joining me now to discuss this day further is the Director General, Nigeria Copyright Commission, John Asseyi. He joins me in the studio. Good to have you join us.
Thank you for having me.
So I think that, I mean, you would know this even as much as I do, that content has sort of evolved from, back in the day where it was either the book, TV or radio. Now we have a lot of content online, and from time to time we hear people bicker over the right to a particular work, and we also see that they will have more pirated works online than we've ever seen before. What are we doing in this context in terms of reducing pirated goods and pirated works, especially online?
Well, thank you so much, and again, I thank you for the good work you're doing, trying to help us focus on the issues here. You mentioned the two demons. It's actually one demon with two faces, infringement and copyright abuses. And that's what we are also dealing with. I will say here that it does appear that there's more abuse online. Without trying to underplay this, it could also be that you have more uses online, not always abuses, because it's not easy to share things online. So people assume that every sharing is a copyright infringement. It's not always so. We're not taking away from the seriousness of this matter, and that's why the Nigerian Copyright Commission has stepped up its online enforcement, monitoring and enforcement, to also ensure that we keep track of these abuses that go on and try and nip them in the bud. We know that more works are going online from the physical. We also know that there are new areas where Nigerians are showing their creativity and innovation. For instance, we celebrated when Professor Ben Enwonwu, his work was sold for $1.4 million. That's Tutu. That was celebrated. But recently, we find that Njideka's work, Njideka Akunyele Cosby's work, selling for $3.4 million. So that tells you that, and she's just about 39. Prof was already very old. So we see a lot of people under 40 making huge gains from the copyright system. And we are going to support that, support the industries, support the business, the technology, and of course, provide the legal framework for all this to work together for the good of the youth.
So why it is not just music that is affected, but this is the latest I think I have in my mind right now, which is a work of, I think it was Wizkid's work, who someone copied, an impersonator and a con artist copied. His name is Wizkid on a particular streaming platform. He was making 30 million naira every month on that work. And that's the money that should have been going to Wizkid himself. And one wonders, first of all, do we have a data bank of all authors, whether books, whether music, whether movie, and just products, all authors and their work within the country? And then what are the limitations, again, because I know some of these streaming platforms are not owned by Nigerians. So do we have limitations in that regard?
Well, that just shows the enormity of the challenge we are dealing with. First, we don't have a data bank that will capture everything, because you only have as much in a data bank as you input. We have our own system of registration, but if you don't input your work, it will not be captured in the data bank. But we're also working around this to see how we can begin to collate the best of Nigerian work. So when we see works that are doing very well, we should be able to have them in our data bank and say, okay, this is a Nigerian work that is doing very well. For instance, we'll be happy to have the best of the works of youth from Nigeria. And then that way we'll see when there are exploitations of those works and there are abuses. We can even go ahead to take preemptive measures even without the right owner coming to complain to us, because they are busy doing so many other things. And one of the things we are promoting on this World IP Day is Talk to NCC. We invite the youth to talk to us. I mean, Wizkid has this issue. He hasn't talked to us, but we know about it. And we'll be more than happy to reach out to him and see how we can find solutions to the problems around this. Some of it is copyright. Some of it might be passing off. Some might be criminal because somebody is using the name to defraud. And we can get around this and find solutions.
Sorry to jump. Does it mean that we do not have a system that is automatic and automated where these things can be tracked. So it does seem like the artists and the owners of this work themselves have to come and complain or register their works. And I also want to ask you about, because again, it's not just in the creative industry alone. There's also the tech industry where people are scared to release their work because they are afraid that, look, somebody copies this and then it becomes your work. I do not have the right to this work. Yeah. What is the process for ensuring that, look, if I have a product or an idea, I can ensure that it is my idea. Anybody who infringes on it can be arrested. Yeah.
First, I will say that the youth should not be afraid, and they should not feel they are helpless. They are not. Even when they haven't gotten it right, we are there to provide some first aid mechanism to ensure that we get back some of what they may have lost. But in an ideal situation, we'll expect that the business model they choose should provide such safeguards. So if you have an idea, don't rush to go out with the idea. Ensure that you put in place those mechanisms to ensure to have the protection. A good example is when a young guy comes up with a wonderful music or idea, and he goes to maybe a telco or a company and says, look, I have this idea. And he leaves the whole idea with them. He doesn't have record of what he left with them. He doesn't have anything to show that they collected the work from him. He doesn't have a non-disclosure agreement. Even if it's to put it on the work and say this work is only given for purpose of assessment, that would help. So if you have such documentation, when you now find your idea being used, you can come back and say, look, you took this idea from me, you've used it against our agreement, now I go to court. So what we find is you find the big guy telling the small guy, look, you have nothing to use against me. But we will step in. If we find such situations, we will find ways of putting all the legal mechanism in force to see that the small guy gets recompense for the abuse that he would have suffered from the big guy. And with the new copyright bill that has just been passed by Senate, we think we'll be able to do more. There are more powers for us to take preemptive action. There are more proactive provisions in that law. And I think to be a better legal regime for the entire creative sector and the ecosystem that we're dealing with.
All right, so it looks like I'll be visiting you anytime soon. Now that you sound like your office
I'll be more than happy to come back here. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for talking to us. Director General, Nigeria Copyright Commission, John Asay.
Thanks for the good job you're doing.
Thank you.